Vigano says McCarrick Worrell knew perfectly well that McCarrick was a gay predator, which of course is true. Everybody knows that. I just talked to a priest, a Monsignor from Pennsylvania today. He didn't want to be quoted directly, but he said, 30 years ago, he knew that, he was just a lowly seminarian in Pennsylvania, and he knew that McCarrick was doing, indescribably immoral things, all the way back then. So the idea that Worrell didn't know, that the first time he ever heard about this was through the newspapers, strains all credulity.
But Colonel Dolan doesn't want him to resign.
Dolan is a flim-flam artist of the First Order. I went to the rectory at St. Patrick's about 6 days ago, and I left a note for Dolan, a detailed note, and I said, I have very important material I'd like to give to you. Please give me a call. And, of course I haven't, I didn't really think there was a chance he'd call me back. I thought there was like a small chance he'd call me back. I know the letter got into his hands, and, but of course he's just, he is an enabler. Unfortunately, Dolan, the bottom line is that Dolan is an enabler of the gay mafia in the church. And Dolan, people need to remember the thing about Dolan is he was the successor to Rembrandt Weekland in Milwaukee. And Rembrandt Weekland, Rembrandt Weekland had to resign after paying off his lover, this guy named Paul Marquis, a grad student. Weekland dipped into the church coffers without telling anybody, took out $450,000 and gave it to this blackmailing grad student, Paul Marquis. And then he informed the faithful, oh, by the way, I lent myself $450,000 of your dollars, but I'll pay it back. And I paid it back. And it's not that. Well, how did Dolan, when Dolan came in, instead of treating Weekland as the dirtbag that he is. I mean, there's no other way. It's not a nice way of putting it, but he is. This is a fraud. Like Weekland was a fraud of the First Order. He was a guy who was spearheading the letter. He was attacking Reaganomics at the very moment he was dipping into the faithful's pockets for money to pay off a grad student that he was sodomizing or having, a relationship with. At any rate, Dolan, instead of treating Weekland as the pariah, he should have treated him as he humored Weekland, and I think at the very first press conference that Dolan ever gave, he said, he gushed over Weekland. He said, "Oh, I've got very big shoes to fill," and I think even to this day, the Pastoral Center in Milwaukee is called like the Archbishop Weekland Pastoral Center, or at least it was. I remember he wrote that ludicrous memoir. Weekland wrote this ludicrous memoir in which he endorsed explicitly the quote unquote genital expression of homosexuality. Remember that? And he goes a synod for that. yeah. Maybe there'll be maybe next year, maybe at the February synod they'll discuss the genital expression of, right. But I mean, he went around the country. He gave an interview to the New York Times extolling, practicing living out homosexuality in the most, physical terms, and he said, it's really cruel to expect, people with those inclinations to be chaste. That's so at any rate, my point is that if Dolan could cover up and could honor Weekland, who is just a total scoundrel, a thief and a fraud and con man, then of course he's going to shill for Donald Worrell and say, oh, Donald Worrell, shouldn't resign. It's too bad that he's resigning. He's a great guy.
Right, he's been doing that his whole career.
We really need the leadership of Donald Worrell. But if he thinks it's for the good of the church, I support that too. So I mean, Dolan is a flim-flam artist of the First Order. And unfortunately, it's sad because I think there's a small part of Dolan that probably recognizes the damage that these gay mafia guys have done to the church, and yet he's just too weak to resist their power, and he submits to it.